Hello, I decided to read one more chapter, chapter 2 in fact, of Life as Carola. It is Joan Grant's life in 1510 she was born as the illegitimate daughter of Lord Griffin. We're now at chapter 2, Return of Orlanzo. I did not see my father until the summer, after I was 6. He had been on a long journey to the island of King Harry to visit a kinswoman of his uncle, who had married an English wife. This has kept him from Italy for 2 summers, and before that he had been fighting under his cousin, the great condottiere. So, though my mother told me that when I was a baby he had come secretly to our turret room to see us, I could not remember him. His friends and kinsmen were coming many leagues for the great banquet by which his return was to be celebrated. Even before the arrival of the steward, who came a month sooner than Donna Isabella to see that all was ready for her arrival, the sleeping house was startled into life for the scurrying of women, servants, and the clatter of provision carts on the cobbles of the kitchen courtyard. The tapestries were uncovered and hanging, smelling of rosemary and sprigs of boxin, which they were packed to keep away the moth, were taken from the presses. The clumsy goose feather mattresses were carried down to sweeten in the sun, and the lawns whitened as though there had been snow at midsummer, with bed linen and napkins set out to bleach. Hinges of creaking shutters were oiled, floors were waxed until they were honey smooth, and the chimney boy brought down tangles of rotten feathers and jackdaw nests on to the hearth of long disused rooms. Mother worked all day long on the doublet that my father would wear at the banquet. It was of white satin, slashed with orange and embroidered with seed pearls and silver thread. While she sewed, she told me how she used to hang a bright scarf from our turret window to show Orlanzo that she would be watching him as he returned from the hunt. When they rode up the hill, he would gallop a little ahead of his retinue, which was a message to her that he loved her, just as the scarf was a message to tell him that he had all her heart. You will see, Carola, it will be the same as it was 5 years ago, only now that he has come to man's estate, he won't be frightened of his mother, and there will be no need for secrecy. He has been without news of us for so long. Perhaps even now he is praying to the saints that my scarf will be hanging from the window to show him I have not changed. He will be so impatient that he will gallop far ahead of the others. The servants will be lined up in the great courtyard. He will have to greet them first and hear the speech of welcome from the stewards. But soon, so very soon, we shall hear him running up the turret stairs. He will scratch on the door, and we won't answer for a minute, just to tease him a little, but it will be a very short minute. Then I shall call him to open, and he will see me and his daughter, grown so tall and beautiful, and we shall be together again. They were to arrive at the castle on the 24th of June, and for 5 weeks I had counted off the days, with lines scratched on the stone windowsill. When I would say, "Tomorrow he is coming," I was so excited that I couldn't sit still and wait for him. I wanted to help get everything ready, so I went down and asked Maria to give me something to do. Everybody in the kitchen was very busy, and I noticed that the great spits had been cleared of the grease in which they had been wrapped for the winter. Maria was pouring melted lard over plates of goose liver and wild boar, all strongly spiced. She was in a very good temper, and when she had finished she gave me a bit of sugar loaf to suck. It was dark and so strongly sweet that it was almost bitter. She told me not to bother her, so I watched one of the other cooks making sweetmeats of egg yolk and sugar flavoured with rose water, coriander or cinnamon. These were not to be baked, so when she had set them out on trays, she told one of the scullions to take them outside to dry in the sun. Then she began shaping marchpane into little pleasure boats, each with almond ores and a cargo of sugar plums. A cart came up the hill from the village with barrels of wine for the guest servants. While it was being unloaded, the 2 white oxen stood patiently in the heat and let me stroke their smooth noses. Children were plucking ducks and gooselings in the courtyard, and I helped them gather up the breast feathers, which were collected in sacks to be put away until they were needed to stuff pillows or mattresses. An old greyhound bitch was digging in a pile of garbage by the door, rotten fruit and pig's entrails, bleached soup bones and the head of a white goat, eggshells and the bloated carcass of a calf, all decaying under a window's veil of flies. The next morning, Mother and I got up very early. We swept out our 2 rooms, and then I scattered the herbs I had been collecting on the hillside, sage and wild lavender and chamomile, among the fresh rushes on the floor. I hoped that my father would say he preferred a brown skin, because for 20 days I had had to go to bed with my hands smeared with an ointment which Mother made out of honey and crushed almonds and lemon juice to whiten them. At first I had quite enjoyed this, because when I was left alone to go to sleep, it was fun licking it off. But when she found out that I was doing this, she tied up my hands in little bags. I told her I thought it was a silly idea, and that if I ever became the chatelaine of a castle, I should get brown all over and make a special law that all the people on my estates could walk about in the sun without any clothes on as much as they liked. At last she finished combing my hair and washing me, and I put on a beautiful green dress, embroidered with flowers that she had made for me. The morning seemed very long, for I had to sit quite still on a high wooden stool and wasn't allowed to run about or play in case I got dirty. It was after midday when the 4 riders arrived to say that the retinue was drawing near. When it came in sight, Mother let me stand with her at the window from which she had hung her scarf. I could see the great lumbering coach drawn by 6 mules with red harness, in which Donna Isabella travelled, and behind it came a long train of pack animals with travelling boxes slung across their backs instead of panniers. There was a man riding on a black horse beside the coach, and although he was still too far away for us to recognize, Mother was sure it was Orlanzo. Then they disappeared round the curve of the hill, but I knew when they were approaching the great gate, for I had heard the trumpeters in the southwestern tower sounding their fanfare. My father had ridden ahead of the retinue, and when he came in sight again, he was so near that I could see the muscles in the shoulders of his horse rippling under the shining coat like sunlit lake water moving in the wind. He was dressed very richly in white with a scarlet cloak, and the plume in his hat was scarlet too. Mother, forgetting her fear of Donna Isabella, leant out of the window to look at him. She was so sure he would look up at our turret, and had ridden ahead only because he longed to see her. But he never looked up at us. I knew that her happiness died like a guttered rushlight, and though I did not know this until much later, it was then she realized that Orlanzo had forgotten the sewing woman whom he had loved for a little while when he was 16. Okay, that's the end of chapter 2. The next one is the Tsar, the tear in the tapestry.